The first one's about interpretation, um, and especially interpretation once you're past the point of is this real sort of deal, where it's just my question is I would like to ask about interpretation of our own NPMR experiences and or data received from NPMR. Our interpretation is colored with our fears, ego, expectations, and beliefs. Some see them as very extreme metaphors and come up with blinding ideas of what the true nature or point being taught was. Other times, the experiences can be taken at face value. As we start having experiences and getting data from the larger consciousness system, how do we effectively interpret it? So I guess I was having trouble with whether how do you know when to take things that happen there at face value, like or when it's some sort of dragged out metaphor.
Well, I think the thing that the way you should approach that isn't so much focused on whether it's some sort of dragged out metaphor or whether it's exactly the way it is, but instead of focusing on that, focus on what does it mean? What do I get out of it? Kind of what reading between the lines. What's the purpose here? What's the information that's valuable, or where is it leading me? Where is it taking me? What am I able to do with this information? And if the information is valuable, then to you, whether you're getting it, whether it's a metaphor, whether it's exactly, face value the way it is, whether it's coming out of your own mind or your oversoul or some other entity, none of that really matters so much. So I'd say it's because we live in this this reality that's a very tight rule set. We tend to want to categorize everything that we deal with. If we talk to somebody, we'd like to know their background, how credible they are. We judge whether or not they're likely to be telling us the truth or not. We look at the environment and what kind of job do they have and where do they live, and we collect all this ancillary information to help us judge the veracity or the quality of what it is they tell us. When you're in the non-physical, you don't have that same ability to judge. What you see or what you get, just think of it, it's just information. It's data. You get it, and what are you going to do with it? What value does it have to you? Look for the value or lack thereof. If there's no value, then I wouldn't, it really doesn't matter too much. And if there is a lot of value, it really doesn't matter too much. So all in all, those issues of what am I really seeing here are not as important as what does it mean. So I don't know if that helps John or not, but that would be kind of the first thing, would be an attitude not from trying to specify all the details like we do in this reality, and most of us do that because that's just our habit. We want to know what everything is and where it comes from and why it's there and why it's like that. But often, none of that's really necessary. Often the system just picks a way of giving you the information that you can use. And you're getting it the way you're getting it because of, the way you are, not so much of the way it is. Does that help any? Are we is that on the right path to helping you resolve that problem, or is that off the point for you?
That does seem to be relevant, and it does help. Yeah, that definitely helps. I'm just trying to process it all right now. And
yeah, next time you have those experiences, instead of spending your intent trying to specify peripheral issues, try to focus your intent on the content of it. And whether that's visual, just look at the content and try to see what's the point of this? What am I supposed to learn from this? And then if you focus on that, eventually you might get a better idea of the nature of the source and why it's being shown to you and what the point of it all is. And that's why I tend, not to be real specific when I talk about these things, because I don't want to lead the witness. I don't want to put ideas in your mind. Oh, I know, it's this or it's that. It's better that you just are open and don't have expectations and just can kind of get what comes. And it doesn't need to be in any particular thing. So I just say, well, that's just the larger consciousness system. The larger consciousness system can take thousands of forms and shapes and different ways of communicating with you, but it's all just the larger consciousness system. So then think instead of, well, exactly how's the larger consciousness system doing this, and what's that shape mean, and why was it, this way instead of that way, and what does that mean? You're over-processing, you're overdoing the analysis. It's best just to say, what's the message? What can I learn from this? Really, how can I grow from this experience? Because if something just kind of comes out of the blue and is handed to you, like here's an experience, it probably means something to you, and there is probably a lesson and a growth path in it. Those kinds of things generally just don't happen randomly. Now, if you're just out exploring and you bump into something, well, that's different. That's not necessarily a message for you. It could be, but it may just be, you're just wandering around exploring things. And then if it's an interesting thing, you can explore it more or less. But typically, I think the things you're talking about are kind of things that are given to you, information that's handed, whether it's a picture or a feeling or whatever. It's just like you're out there and wham, you get this stuff. Well, typically that means there's a reason for you getting that stuff. And you should always be skeptical. You don't know the source, and that's all right. You don't have to know the source. But what's the quality of this information? Does it tell me that, I should go out and punch someone? And then you could say, well, that doesn't sound quite right. But does it tell you something else? And just from the content, you can get some sense of the source and whether this is a source that is expressing love or caring or help rather than a source that's just playing with you or, giving you misinformation. So I'd say always be skeptical. Don't have, here we try to vet the source. We say, okay, this source is so-and-so, and they work for these people, and they do this and this. Therefore, they're in the place to know, so their credibility goes way up. And then we give what they say more or less credence based on the credibility that we can assess for them. We don't have that in the larger conscious system most of the time. So you have to take the information and then just decide on, is that information leading you toward growth? Is it leading you toward love? Is it this? Is it that? What's it doing? How does it affect me? And that's how you can assess often the intent of the source. If it's telling you things or giving you images or whatever that helps you see bigger pictures, then the source is a helpful source, something that's an enabler for you. If it's telling you to do things that just don't seem right, well, then it's something maybe that's just messing with you. But you have to make that decision, not based on how you can determine its credibility, rather just based on the quality of the information that you get.
Okay. Yeah, that definitely does help. I mean, it's something, the experience that led me to asking that question specifically was one that could have been very ego polishing, if you will, like ego nurturing, if taken the wrong way. But the more sometimes things pop into my head about it as of late that sort of point it in a direction that I could see where having something like that would have been of growth. So, as you stated, I try not to worry too much about the source either of it. So
sometimes if there's something that polishes up your ego, that's given to you kind of as a test just to see what you do with it. Are you going to run off now with its new shiny ego and show it to everyone, or not? Or do you just say, yeah, that's nice. Yeah, that worked out pretty good, didn't it? Now let's go on. It depends on how you interact with it. So sometimes it's just helping you see a reflection of yourself in the mirror, but not
Yes.
seeing your body, but rather seeing your ego in that mirror. So those kinds of things
Mm-hmm.
can be very helpful. And that doesn't mean, oh, somebody's trying to get me, I'm being prodded to have this big ego response. It's it doesn't matter. It's not the idea that something's trying to help or get you, either one. It's what can you do with the information? If something is trying to get you by feeding your ego and you turn that into a lesson that helps you get rid of ego, then it really doesn't matter. So see, you're the captain of the ship. You get to do with the information as you will, and the source isn't really that important. It's just what can you do with this? How can you deal with that? All right, they just came in and told me, what a great thing I did, or how wonderful this was, or something, and what can I learn from that? Well, the first thing I can learn from that is don't take it too seriously, and don't get too, proud of it. That's one thing to learn from it. And the second thing is maybe how you could have done it better and made it even a better thing, or how you might have approached it differently with less ego, or with more caring, or should you have messed really with that at all? And you can get all sorts of helpful things from it. It's just you have to interpret it properly, and that's all
Mm-hmm.
about you, not about distinguishing it, the source.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, hopefully that's helped some. Yeah, we just have this habit of trying to vet everything and analyze it and find out credibility, and we want to analyze the source to know whether we should believe it or not, because we really are driven to be believers, and that's really not the
Mm-hmm.
issue, whether you believe it or not. The issue is what good is it?
Right. And I
How
think
can
another issue is, I'm sorry.
no, go right ahead. I'm done.
Uh, I think another issue is when when we or I look at the experience, after it's happened, after you're awake for a while and you've had, your breakfast and you're sitting there thinking about it. That's where I think the interpretation starts to get a little warped as well, because while it's happening, a lot of the stuff I don't have time to intellectually think about it. But then when I wake up, that's when everything gets all confusing.
Exactly. Then you confuse yourself. You have to. You don't. Once your intellect gets involved in analyzing, the probability of it coming up with good information is low. It's better if just as you get it, you intuitively get it, and you have a sense of it, and you kind of need to deal with it right there at that level, and then the intellect, you tell your intellect to sit down and be quiet. That you really
Mhm.
don't need an analysis on this from the intellect's viewpoint. Mostly that's not helpful. That's just more confusing than it is useful.
Yes. Great. Well, thank you very much for that.
You're quite welcome.